a familiar sound to all. The sound of leaf blowers powering up as yards get tidied up for spring and fall. Whether you manage your yard yourself or contract with professionals to get it done, leaf management is likely a major part of managing your yard waste. But what are the impacts of using these tools? Are there alternatives to be considered? Today we will be visiting Lexington, where residents overwhelmingly approved a bylaw phasing out the use of gas leaf blowers. Join us as we learn more about Lexington's transition to cleaner, quieter landscaping tools for a healthier environment. Describe your role as a sustainability coordinator in Lexington.
Yeah, so it's multifaceted. I work both kind of on internal operations to make our town operations more sustainable, things like energy efficiency, waste reduction, and then kind of the other side is a lot more public outreach, making sure that residents and businesses are aware of all of the various programs to help us achieve our climate goals. So really my role is guided by our climate action plan, which lays out the path to meet our net zero climate goals.
How does Lexington's bylaw play into your climate action goals?
So our bylaw was kind of originally brought forward from a noise pollution perspective, but it definitely has climate benefits. Moving away from fossil fuels in any way is going to be a climate win. And so it's definitely kind of gained traction also as a climate strategy of moving towards electrification and reducing dependence on fossil fuels. So definitely a climate benefit there too.
And what exactly does the bylaw say?
So our bylaw made a couple key changes. The first was setting hourly restrictions on when landscaping equipment can and cannot be used. So just shortening the amount of hours in the day that landscaping equipment can be used. And then the kind of more meaty sections of the bylaw, one is seasonal restrictions. So it says that gas-powered leaf blowers can only be used during spring and fall cleanup periods. That's kind of the space we're in now when there are seasonal times where they can be used. But then ultimately, the third part is that there's phase outs of gas-powered equipment entirely. So by March 15th of 2025, commercial landscapers will not be able to use gas-powered equipment. And then March 15th of 2026, residents will not be able to use gas-powered equipment on their own properties.
And what support have you offered to both commercial landscapers and residents as they try to make this transition?
Yeah, we've done a number of things. We were lucky last year to get a state earmark for $75,000 to help support landscapers make this transition. And so we held a workshop with landscapers to kind of understand what their needs were and how we could use those funds to best support them. And what we ultimately decided with their help of kind of what they wanted was to buy equipment directly and distribute it to them. So we bought about 100 handheld leaf blowers with spare batteries and distributed those to any landscapers that showed they did business in Lexington. And then we also got 6 backpack leaf blowers with batteries and did kind of a demonstration. So landscapers in town could rent out the equipment for a week. And then once everyone who wanted to got a chance to test out the equipment, we then did a raffle of that equipment. So we distributed that as well. It's certainly a small amount of equipment based on kind of compared to what's needed for the landscapers to fully make the transition. But that was kind of one first step. And then the other thing is we've done a workshop where we brought in Quiet Communities, which is kind of a leading nonprofit in this work. Quiet Communities, and then AGZA, which is the American Green Zone Alliance. They came this past spring and did a workshop for landscapers of kind of what it takes to move their business and transition their business towards electric and battery-powered equipment. So definitely a lot of education. We'd like to be able to provide more financial support than we've really have been able to so far. But those were kind of the first steps we've taken so far.
What are some of the major challenges to making this transition, both to businesses and to residents?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that are kind of continuing to be figured out. Financial is definitely a big piece. It's a really large investment for small companies to switch to electric equipment, not only the equipment itself, but buy a lot of spare batteries. Sometimes it's retrofitting trucks to have charging infrastructure or finding garage space to be able to charge equipment. So I think financial piece for the small businesses, just change of kind of business operation is a challenge. For residents, I think it's an easier switch to make you're at home, you can charge batteries, and then it is kind of more of a one-for-one switch. We've also seen when we purchased equipment to distribute to landscapers, there were supply chain delays in ordering batteries in particular. I think that's improving, but it was something we saw in 23 when we were ordering equipment. And then I think kind of an initial challenge was the horsepower and kind of quality of electric equipment, but we're seeing that come a long way, and there now is pretty strong, powerful electric equipment that companies are successfully using and demonstrating works. But maybe it's more kind of the frequency of having to change out batteries to have a full work day that isn't interrupted by losing battery charge and things like that.
And what are some of the benefits to this transition?
Yeah, a lot of benefits. As I said, our bylaw came about originally because of noise concerns, and that's going to be a health thing both for residents of having less noise pollution, which causes all sorts of both mental health and regular health complications of a lot of noise pollution, but probably even more directly for the workers who are using the equipment. Breathing in pollution from fossil fuel equipment is damaging to your health, and the loud vibration of gas-powered equipment can be harmful to health also. So definitely big health benefits, and then as we talked about, also climate benefits of switching away from fossil fuels is going to put us closer to net zero and climate goals.
What do you want communities who are considering a similar bylaw or encouraging this transition, what do you want them to know?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of think carefully about the timeline of education and putting an actual bylaw in place, whether you want to lead with carrots or sticks. I think there's a lot of education that can happen before a bylaw is put in place, and I think doing some of that engagement with landscapers in advance would probably set communities up for smoother rollouts of the bylaw. I think the phase-in period or phase-out period that Lexington has been helpful of being able to, in the years leading up, really know that that's coming down the line of a full phase-out, so we can start to have more engaged conversations with landscapers in advance. Those are kind of the key pieces, I think, balancing education and an ultimate bylaw. I guess also knowing that there's work being done at the state level to try to advocate for more financial support for landscapers, and so kind of considering and tracking where that legislation is to know whether there might be more financial support soon, and kind of considering timeline of bylaws accordingly.
How does this bylaw fit in with Lexington's overall goals?
Yeah, it definitely connects with our climate goals. Anything to switch away from fossil fuels is going to contribute to our net zero climate goals. Health is also a big priority of both Lexington Select Board and staff as well. We have a dedicated health department, and this certainly helps meet some of their goals as well. So I think climate and health are probably the biggest goals that this helps accomplish.
And have you seen this movement spreading to any neighboring communities?
Yeah, we've been collaborating closely with other communities. Communities like Arlington, Belmont, Concord, and Cambridge all have phase-out policies in place. Arlington is kind of on the same schedule as Lexington, and a couple of the others maybe are a year behind or in line also. And even beyond those communities that actually have a bylaw in place, there's been a lot of collaboration with communities that are really interested in passing a bylaw or doing some of the education in advance. We worked with Wellesley to do the commercial landscape workshop in the spring, and so invited both Wellesley and Lexington DPW workers and commercial landscapers to that workshop. So I think there's growing interest from communities in this area.
So, what did you think? Could Lexington's solution work in Hingham? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining us for this installment of Building a Better Planet. You can stay up to date with the Cleaner Greener Hingham Committee by visiting the town's website or scanning the QR code shown on your screen. You can also email us at cleanergreener@hingham-ma.gov. Thanks for tuning in and learning about the building blocks for a better planet and future.